It's the pickup of Dunlap, Adams coming back healthy, having some balance on that defense with Metcalf being the stud that he is and Russell Wilson being who he is. I would have to say yeah right now.
Look, Dunlap was a good pickup, and with Wagner and Adams healthy, that defense should get better, although last night was not an indication. That's just the Eagles. I would say it's got to be the Saints, though. And I went back and forth preseason between these two teams in the NFC. And the reason I think it's the Saints, Stephen A., is actually because of a quirk of the way things worked out. Drew Brees got hurt. So that's bad. But if he comes back with enough runway, the man had a rest. And he's been beaten up by the end of most of these seasons, and he's looked bad in the playoffs in the moment of truth. But this is different now. Now Drew Brees will not have played those bunch of games, probably shouldn't look as worn down. Plus, he's extra motivated because this might be it. It's probably the last season. He was thinking about retiring last season, right? So if this is it, he's on the best team that he's been on in years, maybe ever. They picked up Emmanuel Sanders, who's now healthy and playing. Michael Thomas. They have their number 2 receiver, Sanders, to go with Thomas. They have Kamara. They have everything he needs. They picked up Quan Alexander, who can really play, but he had a big contract because he's good. That's how they were able to get him, right, from San Francisco. I think the motivation for Brees combined with the well-roundedness of the Saints, including on the defensive end, makes them my pick in the NFC. I think they're the team to beat.
Can't blame you for that, but I feel differently because I think the absence of Drew Brees could potentially come back to haunt them, even though he's going to get it together. And you know that he's going to be precise and accurate for the most part. He's not somebody that necessarily moves the chains with his running ability. So as a result of that, it's compromised them in the past. Now, I know you're looking at Taysom Hill and you're seeing what he's doing, particularly with running the football. So that's a dual threat that Sean Payton can find a way to maneuver and utilize. But in the end, it's still a situation where you robbing Peter to pay Paul. Either Drew Brees is going to get the snaps or he's going to be compromised to some degree because Taysom Hill is going to get the snaps. We don't have to worry about that with Seattle and Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is going to be there consistently, pretty much for every down, obviously avoiding it if he avoids injury. And his ability to run with the football and move the chains along with throwing the football and having a stud like Metcalf and having Lockett and Carson coming back to run the football and add that Rough Rider element to the equation, along with Greg Olsen. I think that, I didn't see him last night. I don't know how hurt he is or whatever, but you're anticipating that he'll be back at some point being the tight end for Seattle. I just look at the multitude of weapons and the fact that they've improved their defense, and I think this is a team that obviously they can't be ignored. But right now, at this particular moment in time, if I had to choose between the two, it would be Seattle because New Orleans may not have that consistency because Drew Brees has been out and he has to come back. And it's not that he's not going to be great, but if you're going up against greatness, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, potentially Tom Brady, you got all of that going on. That's a lot to ask of Drew Brees. It's not that he can't do it. Well, I'm just simply saying I wouldn't bet my money at this particular moment in time that he'd be the one to do that over those teams. Not necessarily Tampa because we know what they did to Tampa, but definitely Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson.
I'll take Russell Wilson over the combination of Drew Brees and Taysom Hill also. Although Drew Brees and Taysom Hill is a lot. But I'll take the Saints defense over the Seahawks defense. And I think offensively, they're comparable in terms of what they're capable of if they're clicking on all cylinders, right? And also, the Saints have been playing their, better football recently, and that's even without Drew Brees. Let me say one thing quick about the upside of having Taysom Hill and Drew Brees not in the same person like Seattle does in the form of Russell Wilson. When Taysom Hill's on the field, especially now that we see he can actually run the team's offense competently, we'll see over time, but at least you can see he can run it competently. When he's on the field, with Drew Brees especially, how does the defense know what's going to happen? We see that he can throw the ball and he can read a defense well enough. He can obviously run. He can block if he has to, and he can catch. All at acceptable NFL levels for a position, a guy who gets real rotation on an NFL team. So, in fact, even though, yes, Russell Wilson is better than the two of those guys because all those skills are kind of in one guy, Taysom Hill has just shown when he's if you want to consider him a gadget player, when Drew Brees is on the field, fine. But, he's one of the all-time gadget players. If anything, it makes them even more dangerous.
Well, again, under most circumstances, you'd be right. But if you're going up against the consistent excellence of Russell Wilson, that's a different ballgame altogether. Number two, notice that Seattle is never out of any game. They're always chipping away. They're always right there. They're always in nail biters. You don't blow out the Seattle Seahawks. They don't wet beds, per se. You know, they show up week in and week out, regardless of what their troubles may be. And the fact that they've addressed their weakness, which is on the defensive side of the ball, is something that I don't think can be ignored, because you're going to have a tougher time scoring against them. Meanwhile, Seattle, because of its consistency, its continuity, the excellence of Russell Wilson, along with the bevy of weapons that he has available to him, particularly with his favorite runner coming back into the lineup last night, I think that puts Seattle in a favorable position at this particular moment in time. And other teams are going to have to step up in order to knock them off.
No question. Yeah, Seattle's also got a great coach, and they always know how to work the draft. By the way, I mentioned earlier Carson Wentz by Philly was the only Pro Bowl player taken since 2014. I don't know if that came out properly. Wentz was taken in 2016. We will leave it there, guys. When we come back here on First Take, and Carson Wentz has now had 15 interceptions. He's taken 45 sacks thus far this season. Something like that hasn't happened since the 80s. Max, I'll start with you. They have just... Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say, Molly, I can't start off the show without highlighting the blue is looking very, very lovely. Max Kellerman, the tie, the dapping, all of that stuff. But you might want to move the tie a little bit to your right. Just a little bit, Max Kellerman, to your right-hand side. I'm saying just a little.
To my right, like this, you mean, right?
To your right. Just a little bit over. Just
there we go.
I got you. Well, thank you.
Now we're on point.
We ready.
I'm just here for y'all. Our T's.
I'm just trying to be here for y'all.
I'm
just trying to be here for y'all.
Not a Windsor, so it's a little asymmetrical.
All right, let's go.
Philly, guys, just 3 wins. Max, tell me this. Do you think the Eagles need to just clean house at this point?
Oh, yeah, there's no other. I mean, like, look, I'm the one. Yes, the answer is yes. I'm the one coming out always and killing Carson Wentz, because I noticed since last year when everyone was saying how great he was playing, he was regressing badly. That's continued now till no one can deny it anymore. But, yes, it's not just Wentz. Peterson going for it down 11 on 4th down. And you know me, I'm like all for going for it on 4th down. But situational football, your offense can't do anything. Make it a 1-score game. This is not rocket science. To me, that's Peterson saying, I don't want anything to do with this. Right? He has plausible deniability or whatever. I need to get away from this. Howie Roseman, I mean, a lot of people stupidly passed up on DK Metcalf, Molly, who you and many others were saying, what about this guy over here? You should. But Howie Roseman was one of them. Howie Roseman passed up on Jefferson to take Rager, who was said he runs a 1.240. Remember, you heard things like he runs a 4.340, but at the combine it was closer to 4.5 and couldn't get separation at all yesterday. No, and by the way, and then drafts Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round, who's clearly that's an indictment of Carson Wentz, but obviously Hurts isn't ready to do anything, or they'd have given him a more of a look so far. And by the way, Peterson, when he puts Hurts in, the offense is doing nothing. They have like 5 consecutive series with possessions with like they're 3 and out, they're 3 and out, they're 3 and out. They put Hurts in, there's a pre-snap penalty, and then he completes like a 6-yard pass. Immediately, Carson Wentz comes back in, right? So it's terrible Peterson, but I think it's almost intentional at this point. Peterson's like, I got to distance myself from this. He's a Super Bowl winning coach. He'll get another head coaching job. I think Roseman also, this stinks. The drafting Hurts doesn't make any sense under the circumstances. He keeps missing with the wide receivers, right, in terms of putting something together. And then obviously Carson Wentz. Guys, do I have to keep saying it? Do I have to keep saying it? The dude is the worst starting quarterback in the NFL right now. Stephen A., if you want to say, well, if Roseman and Peterson were doing better, he wouldn't be the worst, I agree with that. He'd be average, low average. The dude ain't getting paid average, low average. He has an immovable contract. Again, find a taker for the contract. What have I been saying, like, earlier in the season? See if you can get Nick Foles for Carson Wentz. Not that Foles would do any better with this Eagles team, but at least you get out. Like, Foles has a modest contract. Wentz is getting paid like a superstar. So at least you get out from under Wentz's contract, and the Bears will get a mobile quarterback who at least used to be able to pass the ball down the field.
Out
Wentz
because
was
I have
awful
a
again.
question.
Stephen A., yes.
You're confusing me. You're confusing me. Are you saying the coach needs to go, the GM needs to go, or everybody needs to go? I'm lost. What are you saying?
I thought, well, the GM, the coach, and the quarterback is everybody. So I am saying everybody.
Yeah.
I will just end by saying this and hand it to you. Carson Wentz was facing an historically bad defense last night, and he made them look like the '85 Bears. Right? They couldn't they had like negative 3 yards in their first 5. It was ridiculous.